Welcome to more Summoner's War Monster Strategies. Today we're going to be looking at the Water Viking known as Huga. So, Huga actually has, I'll just say right now, pretty much no use in the game because of the combination of his pretty bad stats with pretty mediocre skills. Pretty mediocre. Let's talk about him. First of all, the stats. The stats as a level 46 star are as follows: 6,255 HP, 758 attack, 472 defense, and 97 speed. The HP is downright terrible. It's pretty obvious, we can see. The attack is pretty impressive. The defense is bad. I mean, not terrible, unlike the HP, but pretty bad. And speed, well, all Vikings have 97 speed. As you can see, he has a tendency to probably get one-shotted, even though he has pretty good attack, pretty respectable attack. It's just not, it's not worth it. No, pure glass cannon. I mean terrible glass cannon, because there are other glass cannons in the game that actually have pretty decent defenses, but they'll still be considered glass cannons, but I'll talk about that later. Anyway, the skills are as follows. The first one is throwing axe, attacks with a flying axe and inflicts continuous damage for 3 turns with a 30% chance. Second skill, multiple throw. Throws 3 axes at an enemy, your attack bar increases by 15% if this attack lands as a critical hit. And the third one, slaughter. Increases your critical rate by 15% and the damage of your critical hits by 30%. Okay, so as you can see, his passive, it's interesting, but the bonuses are just not large enough. I mean, there's other monsters such as, let's say, Ardella, the Wind Magical Archer, that has a 25% increase in critical rate, and critical damage continues to improve as she takes damage, which has a potential to be over 30%, I believe. So, monsters like that, with other similar passives to this, just excel more, they're just much better utilized. So that's the problem with Huga, he's just not a very good monster. The other thing is that this move, although it's pretty interesting with the critical hits, how it improves by 15% for the attack bar for every single one, up to a total of 45%. The problem is that, yeah, he'll get a lot of speed with that, pretty much an extra turn, you could say, because he'll get the next turn very fast. But the problem is that it does nothing besides this. It doesn't have any good effects. The first skill does DOT, but because the third one doesn't have a cooldown, because it's a, passive, it's hard to utilize this skill to its greatest potential. That's the problem. So, let's talk about the runes now. As far as runes go, it was hard to actually find a good setup because this guy is just not used because he's a bad monster. So what I did is I was able to find probably the most common, just make him Fatal Blade. Now, the reason why I'm saying this, because first of all, somebody will say, no, use Rage because he has more critical damage already, or combine blades with something else, a lot of blades or whatever, use Rage Blade. Okay, fair enough, but the thing is, this monster is so bad that he's only going to be used very, very early in the game, which means that during that situation, you're not going to have access to Rage runes, you're going to have access to Fatal runes a lot more. So, I would say use Fatal if you're going to use him early in the game, which is the only part of the game he should be used. After that, he should be ditched. So that's why I say Fatal Blade. Fatal and Blade sets are both easy to get. And as far as runes go in 2, 4, and 6, attack or speed, and then critical rate and attack. The reason why I'm saying this is because, first of all, attack, critical rate, attack, okay, makes sense, high attack. First of all, the reason why I'm choosing critical rate over critical damage is because his second skill, if you get a critical hit, you can take advantage of it. So more critical rate, basically you can take advantage of the second skill a lot more versus critical damage. Also, early in the game, if you go for critical damage with only a 1 blade set to back you up for critical rate, really, how much critical rate do you think a monster early in the game will have if they don't have a critical rate in slot 4 and critical damage? Very little. 15% default, 12% from the blade set, and then a few substats which, 1 through 4 star runes don't really have good substats for critical rate or really anything. So you can't get the critical rate high enough to take advantage of the critical damage. That's the problem. That's why I would say go with critical rate to make it more consistent, and that's solid. Honestly, that's the best type of rune combination that you'll probably get. Maybe there's another one, you could go ahead and leave a comment, like how I always say in every video. But I don't know. Like I said, this guy's just not a good monster. As far as substats go, use those same stats. Plus critical damage if you want, speed, attack, critical rate, and critical damage, and that's it. So, that is my overall review. He is just not a good monster. Very, even very mediocre early in the game, because there's just other monsters that are pretty good early in the game that are ditched eventually, but this guy is just not very well utilized. He's not. So I would say ditch him eventually, but those are my rune recommendations. Go ahead and leave a comment if you have any rune recommendations on what you should rune this guy, so other people can see it. People will surely appreciate that. Thank you for watching, goodbye everybody, and until next time.